Okay, so have you ever just like stopped and thought, wow, is this what the future's going to be like?
I know, right?
It's like every day there's some new headline about AI.
And it feels like we're living in a sci-fi movie,
Exactly.
except it's real life.
So today we're doing a deep dive on this essay by Dario Amodei.
Oh, I read that one. It's fascinating.
Right, and the thing is, he's not just some tech guy, you know?
He's the CEO of Anthropic.
Yeah, an AI safety company.
Yeah.
So he's thinking about all this stuff really carefully.
The risks and the rewards.
Totally. And when Amodei talks about the potential upside of AI, it's like, whoa.
It's a whole different ball game.
He's talking about like curing diseases, ending poverty.
Even like understanding consciousness.
Yeah, like the big questions, right?
Exactly.
And he calls this the compressed 21st century.
Which I love that phrase, by the way.
Right, because he's basically saying, what if we could achieve 100 years worth of progress in just a decade or two?
Think about that for a second.
Yeah.
All the problems we could solve.
It's mind-blowing. But here's the thing. Amodei's whole argument hinges on this idea that we're talking about AI that's way smarter than us.
And I mean like way smarter, not just like your smartphone can beat you at chess kind of smart.
Exactly. He's talking about AI that operates at the level of like Nobel Prize winners in every field.
Imagine a whole country of geniuses all working together.
Except it's not a country.
Yeah.
It's all happening inside a computer.
Right, and that's where it gets really interesting because Amodei acknowledges that even with all that brain power, there are still limits.
Like what?
Well, he uses this term marginal returns to intelligence.
Okay, break that down for me.
So basically it means just because AI might be able to think super fast doesn't mean everything happens instantly in the real world.
Okay, so like you could have the smartest chef in the world, but it still takes time to bake a cake.
Exactly.
The oven's got to heat up, the ingredients had to mix all that stuff.
Yeah. Right, and it's the same with AI. Just because it can process information really quickly doesn't mean it can magically speed up all the other processes involved in like developing a new drug or building a new technology.
Right, so even with a country of geniuses at our fingertips,
Yeah.
we're still bound by the limitations of the physical world.
Exactly, and I think that's a really important point because it keeps Amodei's optimism grounded.
It's not just pie in the sky thinking.
Right, he's acknowledging the constraints, but also saying, hey, even with those constraints, the potential here is massive.
And that's what we're going to unpack in this deep dive. What are those constraints, and how could AI potentially help us overcome them?
I'm ready when you are.
Okay, so we're talking about AI that could potentially solve problems in years or even months that would normally take us decades.
And this is where Amodei's vision of the compressed 21st century really starts to take shape.
Right, like we're hitting fast forward on scientific progress.
Exactly. He believes we could see a century's worth of breakthroughs, especially in biology and medicine, in the next decade or two.
Wow, okay, so how does he back that up?
Well, he points to recent breakthroughs like CRISPR,
Oh yeah, gene editing.
right, and mRNA vaccines.
Which totally revolutionized how we develop vaccines.
Exactly. And Amodei's point is these weren't just flukes.
They were like breakthroughs that happened when we finally overcame certain bottlenecks.
And his argument is that AI could help us blow past those bottlenecks even faster in the future.
So it's like instead of waiting for these aha moments to just happen naturally,
AI could actively help us uncover them.
like having a million scientists working around the clock.
It's not a bad analogy because AI can analyze huge amounts of data way faster than any human.
Right, like all those scientific papers and clinical trials.
Exactly. AI can sift through all of that, identify patterns, make connections that we might miss.
So instead of taking decades to find those connections, AI could potentially do it in a fraction of the time.
And Amodei gets really specific about what this could mean for medicine.
Okay, like what?
He believes we're on the verge of eradicating infectious diseases.
Wait, you mean like completely wiping them out?
That's what he's suggesting. No more flu, no more HIV, even the common cold could be a thing of the past.
That's wild. Okay, but what about things like cancer?
Amodei believes AI could help us turn cancer from a death sentence into a manageable condition.
So like a chronic illness instead of a terminal one.
Exactly. He predicts a 95% reduction in cancer deaths.
Wow, and get this, he even talks about extending the human lifespan.
Yeah, like doubling it, potentially living to 150 years old or even longer.
Okay, now that's just blowing my mind. What would that even do to society?
It makes you rethink everything, right? Retirement age, education, family structures.
It's like hitting the reset button on what it means to be human.
Because we'd be living in a world where infant mortality is a distant memory and people are living healthier, longer lives.
It's almost too much to take in, but Amodei doesn't stop there. He goes even deeper.
Oh, yeah. This is where it gets really interesting.
He starts talking about how AI could revolutionize not just our bodies, but our minds, too.
And this is where his background in neuroscience really comes into play.
Right. Because he's not just some tech guy speculating. He's got the scientific chops to back it up.
Exactly. And he argues that by studying how AI systems learn,
We might actually be able to unlock some of the biggest mysteries of the human brain.
like how does consciousness arise from a bunch of neurons?
Yeah, that's a question that's baffled scientists and philosophers for centuries.
And Amodei believes AI could hold the key to finally answering it.
So we're not just talking about treating mental illness here.
Although that's a huge part of it.
We're talking about potentially understanding the very essence of what it means to be human.
And Amodei lays out 4 specific ways AI could revolutionize neuroscience.
Hit me with him.
First, he talks about AI supercharging drug development.
So finding new and more effective treatments for things like depression and anxiety.
Exactly. But then he goes a step further.
Okay.
He says AI could help us develop tools to study the brain with incredible precision.
Like what kind of tool?
Imagine being able to observe and even manipulate individual neurons.
Whoa, that's getting into some sci-fi territory.
Right, but it could revolutionize our understanding of how the brain works.
And then there's the big one, cracking the code of consciousness itself.
Can AI, with its ability to learn and adapt, help us understand how our own brains create subjective experience?
It's like trying to use a mirror to look at another mirror.
It's mind-bending, but that's Amodei for you.
Always pushing the boundaries.
And then he throws in this other intriguing idea.
What's that?
He suggests that AI could help us access those peak moments of joy, creativity connection more often.
You mean like those moments of flow when you're totally in the zone?
Exactly. And imagine if we could tap into those states more easily.
Our creativity would go through the roof.
Not to mention our productivity and problem-solving abilities.
So it's not just about fixing what's broken, but also enhancing what makes us uniquely human.
It's like AI could help us become the best versions of ourselves.
Okay, now that's a future I can get behind. Okay, so we've been talking about AI that could cure diseases, help us live longer, even understand our own minds better. But I gotta ask.
What's the catch?
Exactly. Will all this amazing stuff be available to everyone? Or are we just talking about a better future for like the wealthy few?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And to Amodei's credit, he doesn't shy away from it.
Because it's easy to get caught up in the gee whiz technology.
Right. But we have to think about the social impact, too.
Like imagine if we cure cancer, but only a small percentage of people can afford the treatment.
Or if AI-powered education widens the gap between the haves and the have-nots.
Right, those are serious concerns.
And Amodei acknowledges that there are no easy answers.
But he does offer some potential solutions, or at least some things to think about.
Like what?
Well, for one thing, he talks about the importance of global cooperation.
Makes sense. You can't solve global problems in isolation.
Right, and he argues that AI could actually help facilitate that cooperation.
How?
By breaking down language barriers, for example, or helping us find common ground on complex issues.
So AI as a tool for diplomacy.
Exactly, and he also talks about the need for more equitable distribution of resources.
Which is easier said than done.
For sure. But he suggests that AI could help us identify and address systemic inequalities.
Like biases and algorithms.
Exactly, or unfair allocation of resources.
So it's about using AI to make our systems fairer, not just more efficient.
Right, and that's a really important distinction because if we're not careful, AI could end up amplifying existing inequalities.
Instead of solving them.
Exactly. But Amodei is cautiously optimistic that we can get it right.
He sees a future where AI helps us create a more just and prosperous world for everyone.
And that's a future worth striving for.
Absolutely. It's a future where we've overcome some of the biggest challenges facing humanity.
And it's a future that Amodei believes could be within our reach.
Maybe not tomorrow or the next day.
But within our lifetime.
And that's pretty amazing when you think about it.
It really is. It's like we're standing at the edge of something truly transformative.
And the choices we make today will determine what kind of future we create.
So let's choose wisely.
Agreed. And that's it for this deep dive into the incredible possibilities and the very real challenges of AI. See you next time.
Catch you later.